Hey guys, welcome back to Cap Views. So today I'm going to be doing a film review on the movie Barbarian. Okay, so I've had this review on the back burner for about a week now. This film and also Smile, I've watched both of these films. These are recent upcoming horror films that have just dropped and released. They seem to be pretty popular. A lot of people are talking about it. So there was a lot of buzz specifically for this film and Smile also, which I will get to. I am going to also do a review about that. I'm a horror junkie. I'm all for trying something different and new, and it intrigued me a little bit. The title Barbarian is quite intriguing to me personally. So I was like, let me give this a go. So, so I did watch the film, and again, it's gonna be spoiler packed. It's spoiler central. Just so you know that going into my reviews, they're always gonna be spoiler packed. So just prepare yourself. If you're one of those people that, like I've said many times in my videos, if you don't like being spoiled and you don't like knowing story, plot lines and stuff like that, probably watch the film and then watch my review. But I'm just going to tell you how it is, guys, because there's a lot to discuss and unpack. So let's get straight into it. Now, basically, the concept of this film is quite an interesting film. And the concept is that you follow this girl named Tess. She comes to this area to go to a job interview. She's renting an Airbnb. She gets to the Airbnb in the middle of the night. It's raining. It looks creepy as shit. And she tries to use a lockbox. You get like a code and then you get the key. And she tries to use the lockbox and then realizes that there's somebody living in the house, or there's somebody in the house. So this guy answers the door named Keith, played by Bill Skarsgård, who is like, I've booked the place. And she's like, well, I've booked the place. And then we see the whole little debacle of the fact that it's actually been double booked by both of them for some reason. So there's some really cool shots. Even in this beginning, there's a lot of like tension and suspense and build up. And I really liked a lot of how this was done going throughout the film, following Tessa's character perspective, because it sort of follows different characters in the film as it goes on, and you'll see this. I liked that. There was a specific angle, like the cinematography in this film was very well done. It was also very well directed. I believe this was maybe the first, or possibly, I don't know if it was the debut or the second film that this director's done. I haven't heard of him, but there are some things in this film that are really quite well done. Like there's transitions and stuff like that that I'll get to. But there was a specific sequence right at the start where you see the environment, and again, environmental design is also done very well in this film. And you see Tess sort of standing outside, and you see this like sort of decision making moment where you've got like the crossroads where she's like, do I go in or do I not go in? Because this guy is basically like, hey, look, it's raining, it's like cold, it's dark outside, you can't just sleep in your car, like what are you gonna do, just drive around, like come inside, we'll sort it out, all that sort of stuff. So there's this scene where she's at the door and it just shows a transition again, or the start of what is going to show transitions in this film. And she just walks through she breaks the barrier and she walks through the divide of the door. And I really liked that. It sort of set the tone of what you can expect. It was basically setting up, once you get into this house, shit's going to go down. There's going to be something, and it really builds up this tension of mystery and like allure of what is going on exactly. And there's this dude, and there's some tension because this is a strange man and you've just entered this home that isn't yours. And I would never fucking do that shit, to be honest with you. I would have been like, nope, I'm good in my car, and goodbye. You can keep the place, enjoy it, YOLO, but I'm staying in my car. I'm not coming in here. I would not set foot in a house of a strange person. Never would I do that. So this is where we start to see the beginnings of Tess unravel. I'm going to get to Tess. I'm going to get to a lot of things. But yeah, this is where we see the start. And you see this, interaction between Tess and Keith. And it's basically like, look, why don't you just stay here the night? There's a convention in town. You're not going to be able to find a hotel. And Tess is like, Tess calls one place, gets like, and then she's like, yeah, you're right. Like she just blindly trusts this stranger. I wouldn't have done any of that. Although, to be fair, I like when in horror films they put realistic elements in the film, right? That's what makes a film really good for me in terms of in the horror genre. So she does walk in and asks him immediately to pull up his like credentials and like show her that he's actually booked the place. And he makes like a quick off the cuff joke like, oh, in case I'm just like, I've broken in to just sleep here. Um, which kind of like, again, like it sort of puts it back in her court, like to try and diffuse the situation. But again, to the audience, of course, this just makes Keith look more suspicious and super creepy and weird. So yeah, I really liked that. I liked that there were some realistic elements by Tessa's character. At the start, you think Tess is gonna be like your final girl, and she's just gonna be like, she's gonna have the brains and the smarts of that because she shows those like the potential, and then it quickly, very quickly, goes just to shit in terms of Tessa's character. It's just this character is one of the like like she drove me bananas, you guys. Like she just makes so many bad, terrible decisions in this film that you're just like screaming at the TV or whatever you watch on. Like I got so pissed off with Tessa's character so many fucking times. Pretty much every character except for Keith in this film. So anyway, we follow this along, and you see that she asks him for the details. She goes and locks the door in the bedroom when she finally sort of agrees. They have this like weird interaction where he's like, "I'll take the couch, like I'm a gentleman," sort of a thing, and she's still very like weary about him. And then she mentions like sheets, so she basically waits for the sheets to be washed so she can stay in the apartment or in the room. And she locks the door every time, and you see it like they make a point of these things to obviously it's like foreshadowing. And then she like comes out and he's like sitting there like with like a bottle of wine, and he previously was like, "Oh, do you want a cup of tea? I'll make you a cup of tea." Like it was really weird and kind of forceful, and it's like, dude, back the fuck up. I don't know you. Just like this is already weird. Like just let me breathe for a second. So yeah, she comes out and he's like, "Oh, I didn't want to open the bottle because if like I thought if you didn't see me open the bottle that you might, think." And it's so weird. And that again, they show like that transition scene where you're cutting from the behind of a wall and then there's the shot. And they do the same thing again. So she comes from behind the hallway and he's just sitting there, and it's the most creepiest. He looks creepy as shit, you guys. So there's a lot of really great misdirect. Though there are a lot of things about this film, as you guys have seen from my title, I'm like question mark, because there are a lot of elements of this film that I do consider horror and definitely live up to what the genre would entail in a particular film. Because again, I've said this before, there are different subgenres of horror. So there's very different types of horror filmmaking. In terms of the filmmaking context of this, I liked that there was a lot of misdirect and suspense. But to me, this film very much so was a suspense mystery thriller. It really wasn't a horror for me personally, just by my standards. But again, there are many elements in this. So I want to give you guys like kind of the full picture because my opinion may differ to yours. So anyway, she sits down with him and then this like tension breaks and all of a sudden they have something in common, and so it's like a fucking romantic comedy all of a sudden kind of a thing. Like it just like changes, the tone changes dramatically. And then all of a sudden Tess is just making terrible decisions. Like they have a little cute, encounter in the bedroom, which is again super weird, but I guess she let her guard down when they were having wine or whatever. It just became like a date night. It was so weird. And the movie moves pretty quickly in terms of pacing, but it was just like you're watching this and you're just like, I would never do any of this. Like this would never happen. This is not a thing. So I don't know. Maybe somebody might feel like that was realistic, or I would never have even been in that house to begin with to have such a weird, non-realistic fantasy version of whatever just that was. So anyway, then she goes to bed, and because of course she's let her guard down, she does not lock the door. So again, this is where that comes in. And you notice these little things, of course, if you're a horror person and you've watched these films or many films like that before, you notice these little things that come into play later on. And they set up little clues. So again, this is where the mystery thriller elements come in. So then you're like, well, when does the horror come in? Well, let's get to that. So basically, Tess comes back, she goes for her interview. She's literally told by this person that you should not be staying in this area. So when we see that she comes out in the morning to go to interview, everything is dilapidated. This area is terrible. There's like, it's all broken down. These look like shacks. It looks like Jason Shack from Friday the 13th. Like, it looks not livable. There's like, I think this is the only house on the whole block that is a house. It just looks like people are living there. So it's completely dilapidated, completely isolated. There's nobody there, and it's just creepy as hell. And she sees this and then still for seemingly Keith, because she like looks at his photo. She took a photo of his driver's license and then he's like looking at it all cute. Like, it's super weird. And even the fact that he left her a note, it was just super weird. Like, this is just not what would ever happen in real life. You could just met this person. Why is he leaving you a note? Like, it was just weird. I get you had a friendly conversation, but to me that was just odd. Like, things were moving too fast for my liking. Um, I just couldn't. I can't relate. I couldn't see myself in that position ever. So she's like, goes to this interview and she's looking at this photo of him, all cute. And then the lady's like, "You should not go there. You should not be staying there. Like, do not. You know what I mean?" It's like a warning. And of course, wrong turn style. She ignores it and chooses the wrong path and goes back to the apartment and yeah, it just goes downhill from there. She essentially goes downstairs to the basement to get toilet paper because, everyone keeps their toilet paper down in the basement. It was so funny when I was watching this. I was like, why would there be toilet paper in the basement? Just put it in a cupboard or like anywhere in the fucking house. Like, and then as that's happening, I was like, there's not going to be toilet paper down there. There's going to be some weird other like reason or something's going to happen. But no, there was actually toilet paper down there. I was like, oh my God. Okay, fine. Like, I don't know why I get so upset by the petty little details because to me it's like, it's not realistic. Why would I have my toilet paper down there? But hey, I don't live in America. We don't really have basements here. I'm in Australia, so that's not really a thing here. So if you guys can kind of understand the cultural difference of when I watch certain films or I watch American films, um, some things don't really make sense to me in the moment. So it takes me a minute to sort of get to the place I guess they're trying to get me to. So anyway, and then the stupidest, there's just stupidity. There's just stupidity after this. It's just totally downhill from there. And then she basically like she gets locked in because apparently this house just has a moving ghost door. So the door just closes and then she gets locked in. So then she just sits there and I guess waits for Keith. Like, she forgot her phone upstairs too. She just does the dumbest shit. Like, I literally have my phone everywhere. Not so much with Tess. So she sits in the basement and then she like notices this like rope built into the wall. Like, why would you ever like pull it? Like, so she pulls it, it opens this weird, creepy secret passageway situation. And then you're like, are you serious? And of course, there would be no movie if she didn't make this stupid decision. But you're like, this would never, like, you would never do that. You would never, it looks creepy as shit. It's like a giant fucking dungeon cave situation. And it opened up and it came out of like, why? Like, you would not. And she's like, nope. And then you're like, oh, okay, cool. Then for some reason, she changes her mind. And then she goes and like gets a chair. She gets a mirror, which I still don't really understand. I feel like she was trying to reflect the light because it's so dark. So she gets a mirror. She props a chair up so the door doesn't close again. And then puts a chair with a mirror with the light so it beams, I guess. And then takes her fucking iPhone and just like tortures her way through this creepy ass fucking basement area, which it's a basement in a basement. Like, why would you ever do that in a house that you don't know anything? Like, it came out of a wall. Like, it's super weird. So she goes, and you're like, this is a bad decision. It's like that moment. So I will say again, a stupid horror moment in this film because again, to me, this was not really a horror film, but that's definitely a classic horror trope of idiocy in the lead character or a character in general. So she proceeds to just walk down this creepy ass basement and it's a dungeon cave, let's just call it what it is. It's a dungeon cave. And then the first thing she sees is a room with a tripod, a camera on a tripod, and the creepiest like stained bed mattress. It's just horrible. This is clearly a torture room. It's clearly a, you know, it's not a good room to be in. And there's a bloody handprint on the wall. It just, that someone's been violently tortured in this room, probably sexually assaulted in this room. So immediately, any normal person, sane person, especially a female character, would have just run the fuck out of there, broken a window, kicked the door down, anything to get the fuck out of there. But no, she doesn't do that. Keith comes home, he lets her out, and then she's like all panicky and she's like, oh, I have to go, I have to get out of here. There's a room with a tripod and a fucking bucket and Keith's like, there's a room with a bucket and a bed in a basement. It's a basement, like that's normal. And he basically just completely fucking dismisses her and she's like, get out of my way, I need to go. And then he's just like, no, no, wait, let me go check it out. So he pulls out the dude bro card, and she, for some reason, again, is like traumatized and horrified, but then is like, okay, because Keith's like, oh, what if I get locked down there? And I was like, fucking leave the chair. What do you mean? What the fucking chair is there? You're fine. You want to go, dude? You go. I'm leaving. I'm booting out of here. Peace. Like, I don't understand why Tess stayed after this point. Like, it was so stupid. You don't know this dude, and all I could think was, what the fuck? Like, you've literally just known him for 12 hours, not even. You spent maybe 3 hours with the dude, not even, because then you went to bed, creepy things happened, you went to an interview, like, the fuck? Like, and this place is super creepy. You found this weird dungeon that's clearly a torture room. You were aware to have the alarm bells go off and the red flags go off, and then you just stopping for this dude that you don't know. Like, the fuck? And, first she's like, oh, you can go down there. But he's like, well, can you just wait in case I get locked down there too? And it's just stupidity. So then she decides to go looking for him because, he just disappears into the cave. And again, stupid decisions. Just stupid decision not to leave. Stupid decision to wait. Stupid decision to go back down there and then look for him. And she just literally proceeds to go. And then you start to see how far down this creepy cave goes. There's like a metal iron like gate, and it's just bad signs. There are literally like dog looking cages, but clearly it feels like humans maybe were kept in there. Like, it just looks wrong, horrible, and yeah. And then we see very creepy Gigantor lady. I'm gonna call her Gigantor lady. She's been described in many other ways by other YouTubers that I've watched reactions for. Um, but she's just a creepy ass, like, sort of mutated human thing, and she just pops out, bashes Keith's head against the wall. Now, the gore was done quite well in this film, but there's just not enough of it, to be fair. This is like two scenes, and yeah, this is definitely a low budget horror film. I mean, you can tell there's like, it's probably only been filmed in 6 locations, and when I say locations, because some of them are sets that, like, the the scene at the end with the guy in the little warehouse thing where she breaks in, the supermarket scene. So yeah, we've basically followed Tess, and then it just, like, you see that scene where she kills him, and it's pretty graphic and violent, and then it just cuts, and then you just see Justin Long fucking singing in a car. Like, I got so bothered by that, like, that initial transition, and also just, I was like, I can really do without Justin Long just singing for, like, 50 seconds. Like, it's just, I don't need that. Do you know what I mean? You could have done anything else. So this is where it started to sort of unravel for me, especially after getting so pissed off with Tess and that ridiculousness, that whole sequence. Just the whole thing. It pisses you off right from the start because she makes such poor decisions. Like, you think she's going to make a good decision, followed immediately by, like, the bad decisions. Just one step forward, two steps back with Tess's character. And then you see Justin Long. I like Justin Long. I've liked him since Jeepers Creepers. One of my favorite romantic comedies is Going the Distance with Justin Long and Drew Barrymore. Such a good film. You guys should watch it if you haven't seen it. I'm a fan of Justin Long. Dodgeball. Anyway, yeah, so I like him as an actor, but he's the worst fucking character in this entire film. He's the worst. He's the pits. He's the biggest. He's king of the douches. He's the worst character ever. So the fact that we spent more time is where I was like, I just really didn't need this. And then there's this weird fucking side story to give you a little bit of an insight to how much of a gross piece of scum this person is. But then it tries to make you feel conflicted, like maybe he has moments. He gets accused of sexual assault, and you see this immediately within, like, the first minute of it being introduced as his character. So basically, he has to go and liquidate, which is, you find out it's his place that he's been renting out. He gets there, he doesn't know why the fuck there are people there, because apparently it hasn't been rented out in weeks, and he's the most douchiest person. Like, he finds, like, her laptop and just throws it. Like, he's just, you see that he has absolutely no regard for the people around him, and everyone is just a pawn in his world, essentially. He's just a shit person. He's talking to his, like, mum on the phone, and she's like, I love you, and he just hangs up on her. It's like, just gross dude. Super gross dude. So essentially, Justin Long's character goes there, like I said, he finds everything. He sees a door ajar. he hears a noise in the basement, and then he just turns into, you know, classic Justin Long that we've seen in so many movies, which is super funny, where he's just like, I have a gun, like, I'll fuck you up. And it's just, that's where the comedic elements come in. I mean, you can always count on Justin Long to bring some fucking comedy to a horror film. Like, he's just funny. He always is. Then again, immediately it switches up because he, again, finds the rope, he sees the mirror, he sees everything, and he's like, what the fuck? And curiosity gets the best of him. And he also proceeds to go down the dungeon. I don't know why everyone thought it was a good idea to go into this cave dungeon situation. And the difference is Justin Long is such a psychopath, narcissist, like oblivious to anything other than his goals and his like priorities that he just doesn't care. So he starts walking and he sees the cages, he sees the room. Like again, a normal person would have been like, "What the fuck?" and then called the cops or like run the fuck out of the house and something. But he doesn't do that. He instead gets really excited by the fact that, oh my god, this is like property value. So he gets out a fucking measuring tape and like starts measuring everything. Like it was so bizarre to see him literally measuring the creepy room, like with the tripod. I was like, are you seriously like not at all phased by this? Like he just proceeds like measuring this stuff. And then you see a creepy room with like a baby monitor, like showing how to breastfeed. That comes into play later. It's disgusting. But yeah, basically, long story short, he gets trapped down there as well. We find out Tess is still alive. And this creepy mutated genetic version is essentially from this guy because it transitions again, and it has these really cool like transitions where it really cuts the atmosphere change it really quickly. So I quite like that. And we follow like a character named Frank who, you know, he was there before it was in the 50s, I think. And, you know, we follow that and we see basically the start of what is why this is happening and why that creature exists, that person. So essentially this guy is like living down there and he essentially used to, you know, he kidnapped women and tortured them and he made babies with them and then he made babies with the babies. This is a direct quote from the film. I know it's disgusting. Um, you know, and so that is the gist of it. So this woman is essentially like a mutated genetic inbred version of what this horrible man did and just the trauma and torture that went on in this place before it became an Airbnb. So yeah, it's pretty fucking horrific, and they do just enough to show you the things that you know that you to get the story, to get the understanding. There were a few moments where I feel like they didn't make it clear enough. Like there's a scene where Frank walks into a lady's room, pretending to be a handyman, just to unlock the bathroom window. So we realize this is set up again for later for him to come in and then do what he does, and then that's how this all sort of begins. Because you see him, you know, following a lady, and then you see him going to get diapers for a baby, and he says things like so. It does sort of get you there, but it does also take a while sometimes if you're not really paying attention. So this is the kind of film that, again, it's a mystery thriller more than it is a horror film. So if you're waiting for like real shock factor, there are really only maybe 3 moments in this entire movie where that happens, and there's the gore and the violence. I really wish there was more. I'm very happy to see AJ's character get it in the end. He's an absolute psychopath. Like there's literally a scene where they try to escape her, and they get on top of this water tower, and he realizes that he's like fucked, and then he's like his selfishness kicks in, and he literally throws Tess off the fucking water tower. And then you see him being a psycho again, and he comes back. He's like, "Oh no, you slipped, and like you know, I tried to save you, and I'm gonna help you now." Like he's just, you can see he lacks self control, where he's just this dominant, gross person who will do whatever he wants, how he wants to get what he wants, and then essentially blame everybody else around him or justify his bad behavior. So he's pretty disgusting, and I liked his kill. It was gruesome enough, but yeah, there just wasn't enough horror elements to this for me personally. There was just a bit. It lingered a little bit too long. It went on too long after the initial start of the film. That's when the pacing issue started. That's when the terrible decisions were made, and just these characters were just not likable for me to really root for them in the end to actually enjoy this as a horror film. And again, there wasn't enough horror elements. There was a really cool scene, I will say, where Justin Long's character initially realizes something's going on. He sort of flashes his light, and you see like the light flash, and then like the tunnel vision, and that looked very much like a first person horror game. Very much like a horror game that I've played many times before. So that was a very cool shot. And again, there were cool shots in between it. The cinematography was nice. The environmental design was really well done. But it's like I said, it's definitely a low budget film. It's very compacted to this house and isolated for the most part of the film. And yeah, I liked it enough as a filmmaking context. Like it was a good movie filmmaking wise, but as a horror film, I just didn't it didn't resonate with me. It didn't click, and it was so much more fucking disturbing. And you don't feel like justified in the end. Like yeah, AJ sort of is almost representative of Frank, but you don't feel justified. You realize Frank shoots himself because he knows the cops are gonna come and like take him to jail. And Frank is so decrepit by the end of it, and you're like, why did you just stay here? Like it's super creepy. And then you feel bad for like the woman who's like mutated. Like you end up feeling bad for her, and she just dies. Like she just wants to be a mum because she doesn't know. She just was watching this horrible film on repeat about raising a baby. Like he just literally like had women and then raised them to raise babies for him to. It's just disgusting. It's so gross. There's a bottle scene, by the way. It's so fucking gross. It's like she tries to feed them, and then it's like hairy. It was so disgusting. So this movie, I get why people have the shock factor, probably because it's so gross. But for me, again, personally, it wasn't a great horror film. It was a good film, but it was so disturbing that I really couldn't enjoy it, and I didn't get the payoff in the end that I wanted either. So terrible characters, terrible decisions, just really bad. So it's hard for me to rate this movie because again, filmmaking wise, technically, it's a good film. The story's good. It's something different in a different way. Like we've definitely seen movies like that. The Hills Have Eyes comes into play. Wrong Turn comes into play. Films like that where you have this genetic mutated issue. But yeah, it just went on too long and the characters were just stupid and I didn't get enough gore and horror elements for a horror film. So, based on that, I would probably give this movie a 6 out of 10. So, it's 5, as you guys know, is 5 and below is just like a bad movie. It's not a bad movie, it just wasn't for me. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I know this has gone on very long, but my reviews are very thorough and detailed. I want to run you guys through as much of it as possible from my experience personally. So these are all the things that stood out to me. So yeah, Frank was disgusting. AJ was disgusting. The nicest person who still was kind of creepy was Keith. Like there really just wasn't anyone in this film that I really rooted for that I thought was just purely good and just didn't deserve what they were getting. If anything, it was the mutated creature lady. So like it's just ridiculous. So yeah. So let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I will drop my review of Smile at some point as well. And if you've gotten up to this point, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.